Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
Judging the midterm electorate by a special election is like judging a child's behavior by watching them on Christmas Eve. Okay, it's like judging a person's beauty by the picture they used on their dating profile.
So, you're 27?
It is not a representative sample. Alright, the Ohio special election is still technically too close to call, but it looks like Troy Balderson will pull it out by about 1 point. The mainstream media, of course, is already in full blue wave mode. Right, they're wearing their Danny O'Connor uniforms, they're shaking their blue pom-poms, they're rah-rahing their chants that Balderson only won by 1 point. Americans hate Republicans and they hate Trump. Go Democrats! Alright, get ready to hear the word bellwether in the mainstream media about 50,000 times today. Is this a bellwether election? Oh, I think it's certainly a bellwether election. What do you think is so bellwethery about it? Well, a Democrat did good, and that's enough for me. Alright, I predicted that Balderson would win by more than he actually ended up winning by, if he even won at all. We don't even know yet, but it looks like he did. But guess what? I didn't know he was going to attack a third of the voters in his district the day before the election. Okay? I would have adjusted my prediction accordingly if someone had told me that Balderson was going to say this.
We don't want somebody from Franklin County representing us.
What are you doing, Troy? Why would you say that? Franklin County is part of the district he was trying to win. Why would you cast aspersions on the county as a whole? Why would you imply that not one good person could possibly come from Franklin County? Harry Enton tweeted, "To put Balderson's comments in some perspective, imagine a New York City mayoral candidate saying, 'We don't want someone from Brooklyn.' Brooklyn makes up a similar share of the New York City vote as Franklin does of the Ohio 12 vote. I mean, the Republican who vacated that seat but held it for years before this election was from Franklin County." All right, so in terms of political strategy, Balderson's decision to give Franklin County the finger was up there with Dukakis riding on the tank. Do you remember Dukakis and his army helmet riding on the tank, and it just got destroyed as a total gaffe. He looked ridiculous. All right, it was worse than Howard Dean emitting this sound. Now, if Balderson had made the gaffe last week and the media had had enough time to make sure that everyone in America knew about it, Balderson would have gotten crushed. This stuff matters. Right? In the Georgia Republican gubernatorial primary, Casey Cagle got caught on tape saying the primary felt like who had the biggest gun, who had the biggest truck, who could be the craziest. Right? That was supposed to be a close election. Kemp won it by 40 points. Why? Because you don't attack the voters. You will lose. You can attack your opponent or the media or bureaucrats or whatever, but you don't attack the voters. You attack the voters, and buddy, you are on your own. All right, so what are you doing? Troy Balderson, what in the world are you doing? Are you brand new to the whole politicianing thing? I mean, is this your first speech that you've ever given?
My fellow Americans, as a young boy, I dreamed of being a baseball.
That's what you sound like, Troy, when you say something that ill-advised. It's like amateur hour. I mean, essentially, he called Franklin County a basket of deplorables. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was on that level. Right, nearly 1/3 of all the votes in the election were from Franklin County. If this had come a week before the election, instead of the day before the election, Balderson would have lost. If this had had time to pick up momentum, Balderson would have lost. It won't pick up momentum now because the mainstream media won't want people to know about it. Why not? Because this isn't a bellwether representative election that shows us what's going to happen in November if it involved a major gaffe. Okay, it's like Todd Akin in 2012. Todd Akin, if you don't remember, is the guy who was running against and was going to beat Claire McCaskill for a Senate seat in Missouri back in 2012. Poll after poll was showing Akin in the lead. 8 polls in a row, as a matter of fact, showed Akin with a very decent lead. One of the polls had him in double digits. Then he made a gaffe. He said something crazy. The media seized on it and created an entire war on women narrative around it. They used it to attack Mitt Romney, who was the presidential candidate at the time, even though he came out and just totally cut Akin loose. All right. Akin never led in another poll after that happened. He lost by 16 points in a red state. But that election wasn't representative. It was an outlier. Because in these elections, the candidates matter. The local issues matter. The local demographics matter. The turnout matters. Okay? These elections aren't just about what letter you have by your name. Do you have an R by your name or do you have a D by your name? And everybody goes out and the vote is entirely based on that. These are real people in real elections. There are actually variables at play here. It's not in any way representative of the entire country as a whole, but the media wants it to be so that they can say, oh, blue wave, here it comes. Okay, the truth of the matter is that turnout in a special election doesn't look like turnout in a midterm election. Look at Ohio's 12th district turnout, which was down a full 10% compared to the 2014 midterm. It's in the same district. So comparing a special election to a midterm is like comparing a midterm election to a presidential year election. In 2016, 378,000 people cast votes for the Ohio 12th District representative. In the 2014 midterm, only 221,000 people cast votes in Ohio's 12th. Last night, only about 200,000 votes were cast. So the race itself is not representative, and the electorate is not representative. That's why, look, I love data. I love it. But I hate data journalism. All right, whether it's 538 or it's Karl Rove with his whiteboard, it oversimplifies politics and it downplays the fact that politics really are local. Who the candidates are matters. All right, Republicans and Democrats aren't interchangeable with any other Republican or Democrat. Right? You take Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania's 18th and you replace him with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she's going to lose that election that Connor Lamb won. She's going to lose it in a landslide because it's not all just interchangeable. Politics are local. All right, so here's the really funny thing about the Balderson gaffe. It's going to expose the raging hypocrisy of the left-wing media. Yesterday, literally 24 hours ago, they wanted to make sure that everyone in America knew what Balderson had said. 24 hours ago, they wanted to make sure that everyone in America heard what Balderson said. New York Magazine ran a headline, Republican in Ohio special election closes race by insulting 1/3 of voters. And you have got to Google this article and see the picture that they used to go along with the article. It is the most absurd and manipulative picture I think I've ever seen. Balderson is shaking hands with a man who's holding a baby, and the baby looks totally pissed off. So presumably, this 1-year-old little girl despises Troy Balderson. Right? It's actually a hilarious picture. It's so absurd. It's so emblematic of the narrative that the media tries to push. Anyway, back to yesterday's coverage of the Franklin County gaffe. Washington Post ran the video with a big headline that said, "Why insulting Franklin County is a questionable move in Ohio's 12th district." Wow. Ace reporting there. I mean, that is cutting analysis. They really figured it out. Politico ran a piece. It was all over Twitter with comments that threatened to break the snarkometer. Lots of people tweeting that they weren't even going to vote until they heard that Balderson comment, and then they were so incensed that they went down to the polls to strike a blow for the good people of Franklin County. Harry Enton, he used to be a big name at 538. I think he's at CNN now. He ran a GIF making fun of how stupid the comment was. And don't get me wrong here. It was a stupid comment. I do not in any way dispute that. But now, watch what happens. Now, it will disappear into the news cycle ether, never to be heard from again. See, yesterday, it fit the media narrative, which was, hey, let's rock the vote for Danny O'Connor. Let's overplay a gaffe to push this election toward Danny O'Connor. That's what they do, right? That's what the mainstream media does. They push elections. They overreact to some little thing to push the election to the other side. Go back to 2012. Remember Mitt Romney and the 47% comment. You remember that? It was every day. It was every news cycle. The 47%, the 47%. If you were a space alien who landed on Earth to observe the 2012 election, you would have thought that was the only thing Mitt Romney had ever said in his entire life. You remember in 2008 when McCain said the fundamentals of the economy were strong. Disaster. All right, now I already mentioned Todd Akin and the legitimate rape comment that he made, which was terrible, totally. I mean, he was just a crater on the electoral map after that. This is the media's go-to strategy for destroying Republican candidates. And it works because other Republicans are always willing to overreact to one dumb comment if the media tells them to. Like, Democrats almost never do this because, for one thing, the media never forces them to. Right? A Democrat says something stupid and the media might totally ignore it. They might mention it and be like, well, I don't think that's what he meant. But, I mean, you never see the media forcing somebody who said something stupid to relive it over and over unless they're a Republican. If you're a Republican, they get the brand and they heat it up and they brand you with it, and you have to walk around for, a month with that brand on you. 47%, and Mitt Romney has to walk around and discuss the 47% comment ad nauseum. Here's an ABC News reporter describing the fallout after Todd Akin said the dumb thing that he said, the legitimate rape comment. And I want you to listen to this because it's so instructive of exactly what happens if a Republican says something dumb.
Republicans from the top on down are making an all-out push to try to force Akin to drop out of the race. But George, he is digging in, releasing a new ad this morning, practically begging for forgiveness.
That's the perfect clip because it's what happens every time. The media catches you saying something dumb, and then they go to all the other Republicans and they say, oh, you believe this? And the other Republican says, no, I don't believe that. They have to condemn it. Do you condemn what Todd Akins said? I condemn it, please. They have to say, oh, I'm wildly offended by it. It's outrageous. I don't support that comment and I don't support that person. Right? It's a test of righteousness. Are you righteous? If you are, then you must condemn everything. You can't just think, well, somebody said something stupid, let's get over it. No, you must condemn it. You must condemn that person's entire being. The media demands an overreaction. The media demands a sacrifice. It's just gotcha journalism 24/7. It works because the things these candidates said were actually stupid. They really were. You said something stupid. But they weren't always so stupid that they're worthy of gigantic nationwide meltdowns. I mean, nobody should have to constantly account for the stupidest thing that they ever said. I mean, politicians talk all the time. They just talk all the time. Eventually, you're going to say something dumb. But if you're a Republican, you better not. Because once you've said something dumb, they are coming for you. It's like Field of Dreams. If you say it, they will come. Mitt Romney spent so much TV time after his 47% comment trying to explain why he said what he said, trying to explain what he actually meant, trying to parse the words into something non-horrible. Basically, every time he shows up in the media for the rest of the race, all he accomplishes is publicly denouncing his own comments, publicly kicking himself and criticizing himself, explaining. In politics, and you can take this to the bank, this is one of the prime axioms of politics. If you are explaining, you are losing. Because explaining generally looks weak and weaselly, and you can't get out the rest of your message if you're trying to explain something else. So, if you are explaining, you are losing. That's why President Trump almost never explains. The press has never had more ammo against anyone than they have against President Trump, because he says things that they can latch on to all the time. So they've never had more ammo than they do now, and they've never been so eager to use ammo. But President Trump just lets them spin their wheels until the news cycle ends. And the reason he doesn't explain is pretty obvious. If President Trump explained everything the media told people to be offended by, they would have to start a new TV network called the Trump Explaining Shit Network. TES. That's what the network would be called. TES. And it would just be 24 hours a day of President Trump explaining shit that he said that the media overreacted to. And this is one thing that really frustrates the media about Trump supporters, is that they won't get angry with him. They won't be outraged. They're constantly grumbling. Well, Trump supporters don't care what he says. They don't get mad no matter what we tell them to get mad about. And there's a reason for that. The reason Trump supporters don't do that is because they've seen now that the media is going to try to destroy every Republican who runs for president. If you're a Republican and you're running for president of the United States, you are going to get the 47% treatment. They're going to come after you and try to destroy you with whatever wrong thing you said, because you've been saying things for years. And so you said something wrong, and they're coming to get you when they find it. And so if you're going to support somebody, the people who support Trump no matter what have realized that you can defend those people by just not caring about what the media tells you to care about, right? The media is so incensed if you just do not want to denounce Trump because he said this or he said that. The media hates Trump supporters because Trump supporters won't play their game. Trump supporters won't overreact to every little thing that President Trump says. President Trump does not spend a lot of time explaining, and the media hates that, but it's actually really the smart thing to do is not waste your time explaining these things. Sometimes, every now and then, President Trump will apologize or issue a clarification if he has said something that, really has people in a tizzy, but that's pretty rare. Generally, he's just going to go on about his business and let them, spin their wheels and eventually forget about it. Of course, they never truly forget. Eventually, every now and then, these things will come up and go, oh, remember that time he said that thing about John McCain? Remember that time he said that? And they come back up all the time, but generally, President Trump won't entertain them. So what do? They'll go to the next highest ranking Republican. They'll go to Paul Ryan and they'll say, Speaker, do you think it's okay that Trump said this terrible thing? And then they'll paraphrase it into something that makes it sound even worse. And, if they get their way, Speaker Ryan will say, well, shame on him. That's terrible that he would say that, it might not be Speaker Ryan. It might be whatever other Republican. They always try to get somebody to be outraged. And then the big headline is, McConnell denounces Trump, or Paul Ryan denounces Trump, or whoever. But Trump supporters refuse to play the game. And the media gets so incensed. They're like, hey, Trump supporters, just get mad when we tell you to get mad. If you don't, then you're not a good American. They'll call you names if you don't get mad enough when they want you to. If you won't overreact to one thing that he says, it's just a total meltdown. They go full on Chernobyl about it. When the media behave this way, which is always, what are they up to? First, this is how you destroy Republican candidates, obviously. It has worked fantastically in the past. Wait for that gaffe. And then pounce. What's the other thing they're accomplishing? This is how they enforce PC culture. They set up social constructs, their little pet list of cultural taboos. All right, these are the leftist rules. Here's what you're allowed to say, and here is what you are not allowed to say. Then the media enforces those rules in sort of a willy-nilly way, where it really only applies to Republicans. Democrats can say whatever they want. In reality, nobody should have to be defined by the stupidest thing they ever said. James Gunn made horrible, disgusting jokes on Twitter 10 years ago, and now he has to be fired from his job. A baseball player made homophobic jokes on Twitter when he was in high school. He shouldn't be allowed to play baseball for a living. Roseanne was ruined by one tweet, and her explanation, they don't even want to hear it. Fingers in the ears, we don't care, we don't care, we don't care. Trevor Noah. You know who Trevor Noah is, the Daily Show guy. He got beat up by a Twitter mob for some stand-up comedy joke he made years ago. He implied that Aboriginal women were unattractive in a joke of some sort. Comedy is like endangered now. And yes, I can feel myself going off on this tangent, but 10 years ago, comedy was funny. Now the only comedy it's safe to do is woke comedy, because any other kind will get a Twitter mob trying to ruin your life. Anyway, I'm a little off track. I miss free speech culture. That's all I'm trying to say here. Mob justice via Twitter mob doesn't violate the Constitution. I know that. You don't have to explain it to me. But you know what it does violate? If you hold personal liberty as a personal value, it violates personal liberty. All right? It violates the value that each of us is free to just be whoever we are. It's like one of the greatest movie quotes of all time. All right, this quote is from the movie Good Will Hunting, and it is one of my top 5 favorite movie quotes of all time.
Now, liberty, in case you've forgotten, is the soul's right to breathe.
That's Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting. That's about the best definition of liberty I think you'll ever hear. It is the soul's right to breathe. Where did that go? How can the soul take a long breath when the thought police are everywhere now, just waiting to destroy someone's life because they said something that wasn't 100% internet troll approved? No apology can suffice. No reckoning can be made. There's almost nobody out there who should lose their entire livelihood over one thing that they said, especially if it was a long time ago. But every day we see it happen. I mean, can you imagine if Twitter mobs had existed all throughout history, the people that they would have ruined? They would have ruined Picasso. They would have ruined Shakespeare. They would have ruined all these people. Oh, Shakespeare said this bad thing one time. That's the end of Shakespeare. No Hamlet. No Macbeth. No Othello. No Henry V. None of these great plays, none of this great literature. Oh, because he said a bad thing one time. Let's erase it all. Let's just destroy him. I mean, hell, in schools all across this country, they're posthumously trying to destroy Shakespeare. They want him out in a lot of places. Anyway, that's too big a tangent. I apologize. But here's the point I was on my way to making earlier. If Balderson had made the Franklin County gaffe a week before the election, he would have lost. The media would have used it to pound his candidacy into the dirt. It would have been every story all week long. It would have been Mitt Romney 47% on steroids. It would have been all CNN anchor. Do you think Balderson's attack on Franklin County will hurt him on election day? CNN expert. I think this was a mistake of epic proportions. I think Franklin County voters are going to turn out en masse to punish Balderson for these comments. That would be the whole news all day long. But starting today, you will not hear anything about that gaffe. Why? Because it no longer fits the narrative. It was great. That gaffe was great yesterday, when the narrative was, let's get Danny O'Connor an election victory. Now, the narrative is Ohio 12 is a bellwether district. Ohio 12 is representative of what will happen in November. See, a huge gaffe doesn't fit that narrative because then suddenly this election is a bit of an anomaly, right? It's a bit of a weird thing because there's not going to be an epic gaffe in every election. So in one day, the narrative goes from spread the gaffe to every Franklin County ear as fast as you possibly can to, shh, don't tell anybody about the Franklin County gaffe. The mainstream media's desire to depress Republican turnout in elections is astoundingly transparent. It can be hard to predict elections, but damn if it isn't easy to predict the media narratives. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can email me, patriots@eddiezipperer.com. That's patriots@EDDIEZIPPERER.com. Or you can subscribe to the show on iTunes. Please do that. Leave me a review on iTunes. I would greatly appreciate it. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com. And please subscribe.